You are listening to Radio SGM.
Hello, everyone out there in the World Wide Web. My name's CJ. I'm the sports editor here at Seattle Gay News. And live from Climate Pledge City, this is The Bolt, your local weather report on all things Seattle Storm. We just had the end of our game here, the home opener for the Seattle Storm, 91-80. And we welcome you. Hello. So, what happened today? It's been a moment since we did an episode like this. Let me actually turn the volume down. That is peaking. We do not want that. This is our first time coming to you live, so appreciate you hanging on for the technical difficulties. But welcome. We're coming live from the arena. The game just ended. Seattle Storm 80, Valkyries 91. It was a loss, mostly up by 10 points till the end. And this was the first game in a long while where none of the previous starting five was reflective of today's starting five. Like, this is an entirely different roster. When we knew free agency was going to be messy, when we knew the CBA was going to change everything for the WNBA, I think people talked, it's going to dramatically change rosters, it's going to dramatically change this, that, but the actual, that happened for some teams like Minnesota, Las Vegas, New York. That didn't really happen. It happened. This is an entirely different team. An entirely different team from the one we've seen before. And it's exciting. I think there was reason to be cynical initially, but I think you look at the excitement here after the draft. I think here in the building, we're talking about it here. The PA was saying this is a new generation. I think that was kind of the language, a next generation. It's time for a refresh. It's time for something that feels truly new. And I think the team and the fans are fully on board with that. They recognize this is a fresh start. And, it wasn't the best game that the Storm have ever had, but it's reflective of hopefully a new beginning for everyone involved. So I feel like the best way to start and break this all down is to kind of go over the new starting five. Who are they? Who is kind of representing the Seattle Storm on the court first and foremost? And I think we got to set. I think the first thing I think we need to clarify is this was not a Flau'Jae Johnson revenge game. Nothing. You may have seen that as a possibility that, she was traded away from Golden State. Now she gets this chance with her first ever WNBA game to kind of strike back at him. Clearly, Flau'Jae Johnson, who it was a starter tonight, that is not how she does things. I think she would tell you herself personally, she does not give a shit about that. She has moved on. I think we've all, in an era where kind of inflating drama is an entire economy and industry, I think there's a lot of appreciation for the fact that there's a wholesomeness that Flau'Jae brought to this just kind of enjoying the experience of being a professional basketball player. And that's amazing. It is amazing. This is an amazing space, amazing fans, obviously. And to be a star on a court in any context, to be lucky enough is it's incredible. So, I think everyone here felt Flau'Jae's, even if they haven't been, they've just been expressing it in the comment section for now. Here, the fans really did cheer Flau'Jae on every time she took the court, and she reflected that back in her play. The first thing that comes to mind with Flau'Jae, immediate impressions, first time seeing her play, is the speed. She is feisty. She is a quick mover. She knows how to zigzag, get around the court immediately. I think the first thing I saw of her is Dom kind of did a backhanded pass to Flau'Jae, and she just zoomed around, did a complete curve, quick fast break right to the deck. And I was like, whoa, this is someone, if you give them the time to just, imagine, I can imagine Dom grabbing a rebound, throwing it to Flau'Jae, and if she finds the right opportunity, fast breaking it all the way down the court, and eventually no one will be able to catch her with time. That's kind of the player I see Flau'Jae as really adding that boost of energy, not just for the fan base here, obviously, but for the actual how the Seattle Storm play themselves. They are, if you need that spark, someone who could go red hot immediately, someone who could dash down the court to set up whatever you need or finish a bucket, Flau'Jae seems to be that kind of person, and that's fantastic. I think, unfortunately, she suffers from what I think this entire team right now is suffering from, which I think all rookies suffer from, which is an inability to play clean and, with some exception of some clutch moments, a real inability to kind of play around the perimeter and play and make shots from afar. And I don't think that's anything on Flau'Jae necessarily or like any one player. I think that it's just the play, like, once again, no one on this court was here last year. This is the coach included, this is an entirely different team. And when you keep that in mind, there are going to be growing pains. Maybe getting, lost, like in the second quarter, they started to miss perimeter shots. They began to lose the ball. I think a thing I noticed about Flau'Jae, she was really swap prone. She would fumble the ball. She would have it stolen out of her hands, like in half court before she could really set up. I think a really memorable moment here from the first quarter was Flau'Jae, as the Valkyries were going up for a shot, a layup, and it fell off the rim. Flau'Jae kind of swooped underneath the rim and grabbed the ball, and it could have been an amazing steal. But then she immediately, as she was trying to get back on her feet and compose her balance, immediately dropped the ball. It went back in the Valkyries' hands. She had to kind of panic and rush back up the court to meet that new defensive surge, and she got a defensive foul. So, there was real potential in that moment, but she couldn't capture it. It's the inability to finish, and it's the inability to play clean. And, that's okay. This is, I'm not going to give them too much shit for that, because once again, this is the first game of an entirely new team. Mistakes like that, especially rookie mistakes, I think every rookie has made, was bound to happen. But once again, every rookie eventually finds their way, and every rookie becomes, the all-stars like, Sue Bird, Breanna Stewart, that we all think about and we all know. So you, once again, can't give Flau'Jae too much shit for that. But the idea that this was her revenge game, like, clearly, that's just a storyline that people wanted to kind of impose on this. If anybody had stakes for tonight, that would be arguably the biggest starter we have, which is Dominique Malonga. She is coming into her sophomore year. Right now, she is entering an even more crowded market in kind of the big center space, But right now, Ezzy is out on a right foot injury from playing Eurobasket with Australia, and Awafam is still playing in Spain. So she really has, especially you could see it in the marketing. You could see how they marketed the new Rebel jerseys. Like, she's front and center. This team views Dominique Malonga as their biggest piece on the chessboard. So it was really, this game could have really been her opportunity to establish herself as like, hey, I'm ready, I'm good being a bench player, but I'm ready to make that next step. I'm ready to be a regular starter. I'm ready to compete with Ezzy, with Awa for that spot and be a mainstay on this roster. I think she is. I would imagine she's starting, I don't even know with Ezzy. I can't imagine now she would be relegated back to backup. I think the team sees anchoring Dominique as, because she's still a great support player. She is the fastest WNBA rookie to get 200 rebounds. That was something they noted during the game. She is someone who, in terms of not only providing production herself, but also supporting the rest of the team, she's fantastic at. But is she enough to be on that superstar level to make like a big jump in this sophomore season? I remember really original reports back 2 drafts ago when she was first drafted of, people comparing her to Wembanyama. And we see where Victor Wembanyama has gone now to near mythic status, And, can Malonga make that same jump? Is she a leader of a team? Is she a superstar on a team? Or is she just a really talented center? And that's kind of my question right now. It's like, is that a role as one of the few players remaining from the previous era of this team from last year? Can she kind of steer the ship as kind of the mainstay, as a face? And I don't really know. I think she gave her all tonight. She dropped 20 points, I believe 9 rebounds, and I don't think any assists, unfortunately. But it was still a really good performance. But without the rest of the team to back her up, it's kind of, once again, I think everyone had this issue. It's just an ability to play clean, inability to finish. I think they had 80% on the first of two-pointers, 80% two-pointers, but I think 40% free throws on the perimeter at halftime. But they just kept throwing them. And you know what? I think that's totally fair, given that when this team goes hot, they go hot, but we'll get to that. But it's you can tell this is a team that had their first ever regular season WNBA game together. It shows, but it's not the end of the world, because there's still a lot of potential for this team. There's so much opportunity for every player to kind of establish themselves as the future of this team. And I think that goes to our next starter, who is who should we talk about next, actually? Oh, I know exactly who we should talk about next. The third starter was Jordan Horston. And once again, very similar problems that we saw last time, that I think everyone on the team has. The ability to really get hot, and really, right off the bench, start producing, but eventually, the inability to shoot threes catches up to you. The inability to protect the ball catches up with you. But I think Jordan showed today that, let me see. What did I write about Jordan? Because I write about every player. That's my job. Hope we're live streaming this for the first time ever. So if you're hearing this and you're appreciating what we do, consider subscribing to Seattle Gay News. We'd love to have you here. Let me see. Jordan. Oh, yeah, I think she's fantastic on defense, is the thing I wrote. She had some really incredible defensive moments. I think in the second quarter, she caught a pass from, Veronica. She caught a pass from Veronica Burden towards the rim and jumped up and caught it and literally grabbed it to her chest like this, balled up around it, landed on her feet, and immediately fast broke right down the lane, straight to Storm's side of the ball, and it was fantastic. And before you could blink, she threw it from the perimeter and it didn't go in. So I think she could absolutely hold down that role, but I don't see her as, I don't know. Jordan's kind of the biggest unknown to me. She's technically been on this team for 3 years. She was a 2023 draft pick, maybe even 4 years. The 2020, yeah, I guess 3 to 4 years. But we haven't seen a lot from her. She's been doing international play. She's been dealing with injury. She and Nika Mule were kind of my question marks whenever I looked at the roster last year. So I'm excited to get to know her as a player, and I think her defense really impressed me. But is she capable of producing offensively enough to be a starter? I'm not so sure. I hope so, because I think there's so many opportunities on this team to step up. There's so much, just because it's a total refresh with all but 2 players. There's so many opportunities to make your impression and step up. But I don't know. I wasn't impressed by her offense. I think she does great on the defense, but I really want to see more. I don't know what that sound was. Something that sounded like pouring ice. Like if you dropped a big bag of dry ice on the floor. That just happened. It's very fun. I don't know if any of you have ever kind of stayed out after a basketball game, but a lot of people just take the floor. I don't know if they're VIPs or courtside fans or something, but they're just kind of doing their own free throws, just enjoying shooting around. That's kind of fun. But okay, so that's Jordan. And in terms of center, I think center is the big question, right? It's how because we've already gotten the sense through the draft, because we're going to have Ezzy, we're going to have Dominique, and we're going to have Awa. Just naturally, some things, positionality is not going to be rigid. I think I think a lot of analysts have gotten that impression. I think the Storm haven't done anything to dissuade that impression. But I don't think, because we don't have Awa and we don't have Ezzy, it's not clear yet how it's going to be more flexible, how many big players are going to be, how many usual centers are going to try different roles. But for right now, we have Stephanie Dolson, who was the more traditional center. I think if I had to imagine, Dom kind of played more of a 4 tonight, and then Stephanie Dolson was the more traditional center. And she did exactly, she was brought in as a free agent. She's, I think, one of the oldest players on the team, I believe 36, 37. And she did exactly what you would want a veteran center to do. Just reliably hold down the position, maybe score a few, but set up screens, enable the defense, keep yourself available as an anchor, do just all the great center things you need from a center, It feels kind of ironic that they're kind of going to a reserve for a team that is set to have like 4 centers once everyone's healthy. You'd think there'd be more availability, but I think that's exactly why Stephanie Dolson is here, to just kind of, for this early run, to kind of provide some really real reliability for a group of free that is still such on varying different elements of their careers. And, I don't know who's going to go hot this year, whether it's Evzy, Malanga, or Awa. We will see, but I think no matter what, I think the Storm like that they have a foundation in Stephanie. And I think she did a fantastic job. Fantastic's maybe too strong a word. A really solid job. She did exactly what she was paid for. And at the end of the day, you got to respect a hard day's work. And that brings us to our last starter, and that was Natasha Heidemann. And Natisha Heidemann. I thought for the longest time her name was Natasha, but it's Natisha with an I. And I got to get that right down. So I'm trying to remember that. Natisha Heidemann. You probably know her from the Minnesota Lynx, half of the stud buds. I remember thinking at the time, as we were losing all these players and had yet to make an acquisition, and like just the goodwill, like we've lost almost the entire last year's roster, and our first move as a front office to fix that is to break up the stud buds. It's like on paper an awful decision, but in practice now, like on the court, put the optics aside, and I can see why they brought Natisha here. I think she brought, once again, you need that veteranship, you need that reliability, especially on a team with so much new talent just like immediately getting chances and filling up vacuums. Having someone like Natisha there, she gave a good performance. Some great steals, some great shots, some great defense. You could tell, like, of the players there, you could tell she had her eyes on everything. She was able to really shift and move around, command. She was often in the center of attention, so she would not be afraid to like hold down the ball and handle the ball, deal with like 3 or 2 defenders on her sides at once, and find openings from there. And I would not be surprised if she is kind of the dominant point guard for the team and kind of a Skylar-esque replacement for the next few weeks. I think my question is, however, is she that for the whole season? And the reason I ask is because Jade Melbourne, another player, another point guard who had opportunities tonight to really prove herself, and fantastic performance early on from Jade Melbourne. She had when I checked at halftime, she had played for 11 minutes and she made 11 points. She, I think, was one of the few players tonight that scored more than she shot. She hit multiple threes. I saw her just actively communicating and leading the team to moves around the court that would actually go in and finish. Like, just the epitome of like, that's a great point guard, and you can see the experience and you can see the talent on display. That's not to say that Tisha doesn't have talent. Of course she does, but I think she was also a bit prone to, even as one of the more veteran players, I think she was prone to some of that team-wide mistakes. Like I said, an inability to play clean, an inability to finish shots. There were a lot of fouls tonight. Natisha immediately got a flagrant foul. a flagrant. I always add an extra R, a flagrant foul, like immediately at the start of the first quarter. And by the end of the first quarter, we had 2 flagrant fouls. And this game felt slow, not just because by the time, we got to the second quarter, those issues of being unable to play around the perimeter and keeping the ball, the points just started to slip away. By the time we ended up at the third quarter, they got stuck around 13, 14 point deficit and they never really recovered, but also it's just so many fouls. So it's just my impression of like the game was constantly stopping and starting, stopping and starting and stopping. And coach's challenge, stopping and starting. And that's usually a sign of teams that don't quite, have all their rudders in check, are a bit rusty around the edges, and I hope above all things, I think people have, I was more optimistic going into now, but I feel rightfully so at this point. Like, I can understand the cynicism of seeing the Storm as being unable to make the playoffs, maybe not even touching the playoffs, being a very low seed by the end of the year. But I think for everyone's sake, that I think for me, the thing I love about basketball is not the win result at the end, but I want to have hope till the very end that we can win. You love a close game. You wanna see a team that is putting their all on the board from moment 1 to moment 0. Like, nobody wants to see like all the backups on the field and on the court because because we're already down 20. We might as well rest our starters. Nobody wants that. So what I'm really hoping for, because the team there's just a lot of good energy and a lot of positive energy, and you can thank that just to the environment of women's sports, but even especially Seattle sports. I think Seattle Storm has such a fantastic fan base, and women's sports here have such a fantastic fan base. We saw that with the Torrent. I believe it can be the same here with the Storm, but they really do need to step it up as we continue. And the Valkyries, they have a high floor in terms of like, they're always going to bring consistently good play, but they're not the best team in the league by far. There are far better teams. I'm thinking of the Fever, the Liberty, for some reason my brain's stuck on the Fever and the Liberty. It's been a long day. Fever, Liberty, Aces, my God, like in the past with Las Vegas, I always, even if we'd eventually trail, I always believe, that we'd be able to, maybe come back. I am not looking forward to see this team blown out by the Aces. That is not going to be fun. But, it's the challenge of a season where you are going through that first season where you're going through a full rebuild and everyone expects you to underperform. Where do you find the joy? Who do you look for to improve? How does the starting 5 change? I hope there's competition for the starting roles, even if, Flau'Jae and Dom are kind of the more marketable players now on the team. I hope that they have to really fight for their positions, and I hope we see changes. I hope Natisha has to fight with Jade. I think I would love to see more competition between Flau'Jae Johnson and Zaya Cook, because for that second spot on the starting 5, because Zaya really impressed me. I will say that with utmost confidence. Zaya Cook, multiple times, immediately came off the bench and hit a clutch play. Whether that was, whether that was a free from afar, whether that was a fast break up close. I've been hearing reports that she has been gaining a lot more confidence under Coach Ramon, who I think so far doing the best she can with the team she has. And just from what I'm hearing from behind the scenes, I haven't gotten to know her style of play or listen to a lot of her interviews yet. But from what I've heard from anecdotal reports, she is really encouraging more of the depth players to step up, which I think is exactly what this team needs. And we saw it in Zaya tonight, the ability to get off the bench and immediately score a free. I would realize she's there on the court, and by the time that's happened, she's already hit a buzzer beater. She's already hit one from downtown. I heard people going "Let them cook" multiple times tonight, and that was one of the smaller joys. One of the big joys I got from tonight. And if she can The Seattle Storm, they weren't the best free-point shooting team last year. So if Zycook can, as the sixth man of the team, or sixth woman in this case, be able, Sonia can look to Zaya and be like, we need a free, we need a bucket right now, right off the bench, bring in someone who's hot and can deliver that immediately. That's going to be a real boon for the team in the long run. And I think everyone who looks at this team and says, now in the short term, it's going to be rough, but this team has potential. And I could see the potential. I could see both the roughness of the actual play, but the real potential. And I don't know, for the fans tonight who are excited, even with like a 10, 15, 20-point deficit, I'm excited for them once this team really finds its footing and really starts to mesh together, and we have a starting five that really knows how to play with each other. And if, and it's only going to get more interesting from here as we got, bigger, more interesting, more challenging teams ahead on the schedule. As Awa and Ezzy come into the mix, how do they play into the kind of the larger picture here? It's going to be what I was saying from the beginning, from episode 1 of this podcast. This may not be the best season of the Seattle Storm, but this is going to be a fun season. And if they are able to avoid blowouts like tonight and keep games close, then it's going to be really fun. And I'm hopeful. I'm still very hopeful. And that is going to do it for tonight. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you've been watching this live, thank you. My name once again has been CJ Emerson, and you have been listening to The Bolt. We are going to do way more post-game forecasts later. Well, not forecasts, because that would imply you're learning ahead of time. These are more post-game recaps. Right here from Climate Pledge Arena. Thank you to the Seattle Storm and Climate Pledge Arena for having us here, filming live. Once again, I'm CJ Emerson. We will be back to cover the upcoming game on the 17th against the Indiana Fever. Wow, the music already, the outro music already ended. So you can see that we're still a bit, just like the team, still a bit new to this, but we're going to get those rough patches figured out. And for now, thank you for listening to The Bolt. We will be back on the 17th when the Storm play Caitlin Clark in the Fever. Take care, y'all.